Hi, welcome back. So this month for March, we decided to read manga, so Manga March. I have to confess, even though I ordered this for our library along with the other graphic novels, this is my first time reading manga. And so I ended up deciding to read two. So what I first read was Death Note. This is a very well-known series. It celebrated its 10th year anniversary. It's by Oba is the story writer, and the art is by Obata. And then I also read Grimm's Manga Tales. This is a new double volume release. It just came out by Ishiyama. And this one was done by Tokyo Pop. And this is by Shonen Jump. So first I want to talk about Death Note. For those of you who are familiar with this, I want to give a big yawn because you know it. Bear with me, I'm not going to give lots of details. This is a series that is already closed, and it's a short run series. So basically what we have is the main character, Light. He is brilliant, ambitious, college-bound student, getting ready to graduate, top of his class, actually one of the top students in Japan. And he finds a death notebook, and a death notebook is something that is owned by a death demon. And the death demon, I'm looking down so I get it right, is a Shinigami, according to Japanese mythos. And the name of this one is Ryuk. And all of this starts because both of them, Ryuk and Light, are bored. Let this be a lesson to you. When you are bored, bad things can happen if you let yourself play with things like death notebooks, okay? So Light ends up playing with this, and he knows exactly what it is, but he doesn't know if it will actually work. So he decides to try it out on the criminal element, and lo and behold, it does work. And he fills it up, and he fills it up, and he fills it up. And the way it works is if you write someone's name down in it, they die. And if you just write their name, they die of a heart attack. But if you write details like, oh, they get squished between two oncoming city buses, and a huge splat happens, that's how they die. Okay, that actually is not one of the deaths in the book, but you know, I imagined. So this is what ends up happening. And when Ryuk finally appears, he expects Light to be terrified of him. And I gotta tell you, I would also be terrified by this monster. Okay, so here he is, Death Demon Ryuk. I think it's the most terrifying thing, and there's violence in this book, and there's people who die, and you don't get to see all of them on page. I think this is the most terrifying thing drawn in the book, okay? The Death Demon. And when he appears, Light is like, so what? I mean, seriously, no emotion, he's calm, he expects it. And he's like, so are you here to take me now? And Ryuk's like, dude, this kid doesn't even care. He's not even terrified of me. And he's not. And what Light plans to do is he wants to rid the world of the criminal element, make it all good, and basically he wants to kind of take over. And it's important to recognize that when he took over the Death Notebook, he also was taken over by the demon itself. Now, for those of you who don't understand the Japanese mythology of the Shinigami demon, like I did not, what's really great about this is that the author, Oba, provides in between the chapters the instructions that are written in the Death Notebook as well as information about the demon itself. This is really a fascinating book. Besides the fact that it's kind of horrific, there's also a mystery, because on the other end of it, there is a person called Light, who basically is like a Sherlock Holmes type character you don't know much about, who is trying to catch him in the act because they realize that something's going on. So there's a sort of epic struggle. And it's really interesting because the protagonist himself is sort of ambivalent. It's really hard to like him because he's going around killing people, but at the same time he's intriguing because he believes that he's doing this for the moral good. Highly recommend this series. And I am going to finish reading it. So the next one is Grimm's Manga Tales. So since I read something that had to do with Japanese mythology, I was really interested to see what a Japanese writer would do with European fairy tales. And it describes this as fairy tales with a twist. So for example, there's Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, the Frog Prince, and so forth. But instead of the Frog Prince, we get the Frog Princess. Okay? Instead of Rapunzel being a girl locked in the tower, we have a young man with very long hair. And it's a girl who climbs up and rescues him in some effect. Now, here's the weird thing. I read Rapunzel, and I actually initially thought Rapunzel was a girl because that's how beautiful Rapunzel looks. The characters in this book, the men are more beautiful than the women. They're drawn very androgynously. There's very much a lot of gender bending rules, and the idea that it has to be a man to save the woman is definitely examined, because that isn't always the case. So there are a lot of tricks and differences in this book, and it was fun to read what a Japanese writer might do with traditional European tales. So there's a couple questions I wanted to go over. One is, if you were new to manga like me, one of the things that always concerned me when I picked up something like this, and I hate it when someone says it's backward. It's not. Remember, the Japanese language reads right to left. So they've done a huge favor, but of course they make money from it too, by translating it into English for us. So I thought, can this old lady handle it? Would I have problems and stumble over the fact that I'm reading it right to left? I did not. Never once from the very first page did I have an issue following the storyline. It was fantastic and I loved it, and I don't know why it took me so long to pick up something that's manga. Secondly, I know that so many people, so many young people who read manga get so fascinated by the Japanese culture. And I wondered why. Like, what is it about manga that reflects Japanese culture? So if you are a manga addict, let me know why. But for me, it made me think about the Japanese publishing industry. I have read a lot of graphic novels that have to do, that are from other countries. And it made me think about American publishing industry and how we look at comics. And here's the main difference. American publishing industry, we're really kind of conservative. Japanese, like everywhere else, I've read some from Germany, I've read some from France, they're much more freeing, they're much more liberated. They're much more willing to take chances when it comes to storyline, and when it also comes to how they represent it in art. And so a lot of people will complain, for example, that it's too violent, okay? Remember that manga in Japan is written for all ages. So some of them are meant for adults, and I would say Death Note's high school on up. Some might say, well, it's kind of weird. Like, for example, in Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf is actually, and he's on the front here, human form, wolf ears, and a tail. And the way he can transform and be a full wolf is if he eats a virgin. And that's going to be Little Red Riding Hood. But instead, he falls in love with her. And at the end, they are together as grown-ups. Some might say, that's bestiality, that's horrible. But in here, in this fantasy magical world, it's actually quite beautiful the way it's represented. And for example, there's also so many of the men in this book are more beautiful than the women, that several times they dress up as women and they pass convincingly. And then when they reveal themselves, instead of people going, oh, that's a man, they applaud. Oh, you're so beautiful. You can be a woman or a man. We love that. And that is not usually the reaction we get in American culture. So what I got from this when it comes to what happens in the Japanese publishing industry is that they're far more progressive in how they choose to present both their characters and their stories. And I can see why this would appeal especially to a younger generation here in America. Because most of, I grew up watching TV shows where they would put a man with, locked jaw and hairy chest and a dress, and it's obvious it's a man. But not here. Here, we see gender stereotypes being blown apart, where the men are equally or more beautiful than women. So to me, I can completely understand why this is a genre that's appealing to a younger generation. So manga, 2 thumbs up, love it, going to continue to read it. I hope you had a great time, and thanks for joining me today.